Welcome to the Monday, May 13th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We will start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
And then we have two new commissioners, Commissioner Emma Fulwilder. Present. And Commissioner Kelsey Lutzow. Oh, she's not on.
She may be late.
Okay. All right, moving on then to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Well,
Sorry. So, I jumped ahead.
That's okay.
I appreciate
I
that.
appreciate it.
We'd just like to announce that one of the items that had a public hearing notice sent to it was for a conditional use permit for an accessory garage on East Shore Drive. That has been withdrawn, so you won't see that on the agenda. And so everybody here, if anybody's here to speak about that item, that will not be discussed tonight, the conditional use permit on East Shore Drive. And then because of the crowd, who I believe are here for items 3 and 4.
1 and 2. We're going to move.
Oh, 1
Three
and
and
2, 1 and 2, correct. Staff is recommending you move 3 and 4 to the head of the agenda, let those people get out of the room and get that item done.
We need to motion that, or is
We
that
do,
just-
so
Okay,
move as
motion-
what he said.
Motion move 3 and 4 up ahead of 1 and 2 in the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the April 29th and May 2nd, 2024 meetings.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Alder Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on then to regular business, which we will start with item number 3, which is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter. We also ask you confine testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 3. Public hearing on a request for a conditional use permit to construct a second accessory structure which exceeds maximum size and is constructed with a metal exterior finish at 3394 Haven Place, submitted by Scott and Sherry Tremmel, property owners.
Thank you, Chair. This property is on the city's far west side, so far west that this is the village of Howard. This is one of the last parcels. The lights are okay.
Wasn't just you.
Within the city limits here. So the parcel extends pretty far back, but the house and the garage, other accessory structures are here towards the front of Haven Place. This is a street view of that property. Looking at the future land use, we're looking for that low-density residential, which is pretty well constructed throughout the entirety of that neighborhood. And then for the zoning, we have rural residential zoning, which we don't see a lot of. With that zoning, they did receive a variance earlier this year that was to do agricultural uses for a large, what are they called? Livestock? Yeah. So basically, so they can hold livestock here on a 7-acre parcel versus the 10, which is required by code. So with that, they have submitted this for a conditional use permit to allow for this second accessory structure, which is allowed by code, but it does exceed the size that's allowed by code. And then also it would be entirely finished by metal, and our code only allows for 120 square feet of a metal exterior. So the site plan here kind of shows, house, garage in the front, that pond that was there. So pretty far back onto the property is where they're proposing the second accessory structure. It is proposed to look something like this. So as you can see, very much agricultural in nature, that full metal exterior. They did provide a lot of details within the packet that show why they chose that finish and that design to go along with that variance that they received for the agricultural uses. As part of that variance, they did have some conditions that they needed to hit, one being rodent control. It's pretty well documented that the full metal structure would be better in a heavy agricultural use to have rodent protection. So we are supportive of that request. Additionally, it's really far back from the road. You won't be able to see this from the road, and it does really benefit that variance for that agricultural use. So all that being said, we are recommending approval.
Public hearing.
Oh, I don't recommend anything yet.
Okay. All right. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak in favor, against, or just provide information. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Go ahead and come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Roger Truckee, 3359 Haven Place, just down from Scott and Terry's, and I approve if it goes through. I have no problem with it.
Thank you so much.
I'm Scott. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
If you can state your name and address for the
I'm
record,
sorry.
please.
Scott Trumbull, 3394 Haven Place. Thank Bill for coming tonight. So it's my property, so if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about the structure.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Diane, are you looking to speak?
No.
All right. Let the record reflect that no one has come forward and that the public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on a request for a conditional use permit to construct a second accessory structure which exceeds maximum size and is constructed with a metal exterior finish at 3394 Haven Place, submitted by Scott and Sherry Tremo, property owners.
Now I am recommending approval of this request with compliance to our normal code.
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Alder Hutchinson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward to City Council the 21st. Is there a meeting? May 21st? Okay, correct. All right, May 21st. All right, and then we were moving back then to item number 1, which is another public hearing. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this manner, and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. We will now open the public hearing on item number 1. Public hearing on a request to develop a planned unit development at 221 Cherry Street to allow the development of an 8-story building of 268 apartment homes and approximately 4,900 square feet of retail space on the street level, submitted by Joey Wisniewski of New Land Enterprises, applicant on behalf of the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So what you're seeing right here is the property area view, looking to the north of the existing public service lot located on Cherry Street. The existing zoning for the site is downtown 2. We have 2 different separations for our downtown uses. One is D1, that's typically on Broadway, not quite as urban or intense. D2s are our most extensive zoning district, where limits for heights and floor area ratios are expanded to its greatest capacity. and this site is zoned for that. Future land use calls for parks. Now, the future land use was created back in 2002, and since then we've had the authenticity plan. In the authenticity plan, this area is called for a 7-story mixed-use concept. These are just concepts, but it clearly called for this site to have a mixed-use component taking up the block. And it also included potentially going further to the north to where Pine Street would go through, but utilizing this space in a mixed-use form. What you see on top is what the intent of the downtown zoning district is. A full range of high-intensity uses, retail, multifamily, housing, offices, entertainment, and civic uses, divided into 2 districts, and this is D2. So it's the most intensive use that we have within the city of Green Bay. This is the existing site as we see it last week. So surface lot during the day with its stalls that are used by the public. And this is what is being proposed by Newland on the site. This would be a street view looking from the intersection of Washington and Adams looking to the northeast. You see a platform with some sort of commercial space on the intersection of Washington and Adams. Within that first floor, this right here, in the first floor you'll see the approximately 4,900 square feet of commercial space, and then some entryways to have enclosed private parking within the first and second floors. Additionally, some additional spaces as amenities for the apartments themselves, and then some individual townhomes that are located on the first and second floor of Cherry Street. Going back to this photo, you'll notice the first and second floors act as a platform, and then above it you have floors 3 through 8, which have the residential units themselves, along with some amenities on top of the roof. So here are a few more views. This is looking from Cherry and Adams looking to the northwest, back towards the river. The site itself has a number of amenities that are being proposed with beauty, pool space, grillable areas, green roof, spaces for the 268 folks or different units at the site to use above street level and give some added amenities that we typically do not see right now in Green Bay, but you do see in other municipalities. Some more views that were provided by the applicants. The first one on top would be your townhome view along Adams, and the second view down below would be a view looking at that courtyard area on top of the roof, so where the residents would have some windows and open space on all sides of the building. Either looking back out towards the city blocks or looking back in towards this courtyard and having views, in this case, backward to the west side. So why are we here today? Why this PUD? The vast majority of what was proposed by Newland meets Downtown 2 code. Vast majority. There are 2 key takeaways that need to be addressed that do not. The first thing is, within our land use development, residential use is not permitted on the first floor, the ground level, of mixed-use buildings. It is supposed to be on the second floor and above. Why is that? It's trying to keep the spaces along the street front commercial, not to have more and more residential units who wouldn't be contributing back to the downtown businesses and having that use of space to where you want folks to go from one business to another, taking advantage of that. However, in this case, we're talking about a surface area here that goes down Adams, Cherry, Washington. There is a lot of surface space that happens on the ground level, where they're focusing their attention for the townhomes on Cherry Street. We feel it's a good spot to put them as far as having additional space, because Washington has its corridor with commercial. Adams does too. To the south, you have both the Cherry Street ramp, and then we're waiting on some redevelopment at 220 Cherry as well. So in the grand scheme, we felt this was an appropriate trade-off here, based off of the next thing being square footage. The max is 1,000 square feet of land area per unit. In this case, because they're asking for 268 units, they're getting down to about 250 square feet per unit, which is a lot. But that code's in place to try to account for things like parking, surface parking, amenities, green space. In this case, staff feels that what was provided meets that above and beyond expectations. And so it's meeting the intent of why that code is in place. So if those two things are met, we wouldn't be here right now. This would be a typical review that would go through staff. It meets downtown 2 coding, but because it didn't meet that, we are here, and they are asking for the PUD. The third thing to address here, while it's not required, on the north property line, there is no requirement for a setback within the zoning code. You could place a building right against a property line because it's mixed use in downtown, within the zoning code itself. But recognizing that to the north, there is an existing condominium building, and there are users, and hearing feedback from the public, staff did feel it was appropriate to put some additional consideration for lighting in that area. And going down 2 pathways. So the first thing is, no matter what happens out here, staff feels that there should be foot candles along the property line that go between 1 and 3 foot candles. The typical max is 1 at the property line. We're suggesting to go above and beyond because you're creating an enclosed situation. The word that's been bounced around is alley. This is not an alley. This happens to be a space between 2 buildings. It's not public. It's not as though any one of us could walk down this way, meander between property lines, unless it was explicitly known you could do that. With that in mind, with Newland and the property owners to the north, if they can come to an agreement here in the coming months that there should be access between the buildings to go from Washington to Adams and have people use that as pedestrian way like a typical alleyway. We would suggest then that in the PUD that the lighting also include pedestrian skill lighting and art pieces. Because in that case, you're inviting the public to say, yes, use this space, be a part of it. But if not, if both parties are not in the PUD, it's noted that to have that space not have additional pedestrian lighting, because you wouldn't want to be encouraging folks to go through there if both parties did not want people to have ingress, egress walking through that way. Additionally, this is what that area looks like right now. So the property line itself between the two is, if you see that point that sticks out in the background, that's approximately where your property line is at. And the applicant's looking to place their building approximately 5 feet south of that line, parallel to the property line. That's what I have for now.
Okay.
And I'd like to make one point, Kelsey, let's know is online. She is your 7th commissioner.
Okay.
So she did come at 6:18.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item, and
If you time it.
should I do?
I would do the ones who signed up first. And I guess we point out there is a number that signed in via the internet that chose to speak, and those we've included in front of you, and there were a number that chose not to speak but wanted their comments into the record. So every commissioner should have a copy of those who didn't want to speak on their desk. That will be forwarded with the packets to the common council.
So should I start with these then? Okay, all right. Paul Belschner.
Thank you. Paul Belschner, Green Bay. Here in the capacity of the president of the Bay Lake City Center Condominium Association, Inc. this evening. The Bay Lake City Center Condominium Association is comprised of various commercial condominium units that are owned from a variety of different groups. Our property address is primarily 301 North Adams, or the former Boston store, the building immediately to the north of the proposed project here at the Adams Street parking lot. There are a large amount of concerns that have been brought forth from the condominium owners regarding the proposed project. I think very consistently, all condominium owners have agreed that we welcome well-thought-through master plan development in our city and continue to make it, a better city with redevelopment. That list of items has been forwarded to city staff for quite some time, early this year. So I'm not here to talk individually about those items. I think others may be. This evening, I would like to introduce the condominium's architect of record, Rick Fisher, with Fisher and Associates. We, as conduits of the association, are really more concerned tonight on our behalf on future compliance with ingress and egress, exiting paths, and fire code-related items. For historical context, in about 1981, there was a 30-foot no-build easement around 301 North Adams Street, or the Boston store, as an anchor tenant to what was Port Plaza Mall. In about 2007, that easement was terminated. The city attorney, the condominium association's attorney have researched, and nobody can come up with a definitive reason as to why that easement was terminated. One possibility is it was terminated in error, as other areas of easements were being cleaned up when Port Plaza Mall was being demolished in lieu of the Schreiber redevelopment. In late summer, fall of 2023, that easement was reapproved and subsequently rescinded later that year. So I defer to Rick Fisher to speak for his 3 minutes on the fire and life safety issues that we'd like to speak more about this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Vanya Kopke?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Vanya Kepke, 4850 Stella Court, Hobart. I'm here on behalf of Spring Lake Church. I've had the great honor of serving the city as a police and fire commissioner for 2 years, and appreciate all the work that you do on this commission. Thank you for your work. And while I'm in favor of this project, I also want to talk about community partnerships. How can we work together to make sure the needs of Spring Lake Church are met? For instance, the elephant in the room is at the front door of the building, where over 500 people go to on Sundays and get free services throughout the week through counseling and other services. Will be 13 and a half feet away from an 8-story building. You can frame it as an alley, you can frame it as a pedestrian way, lit or not lit. It's not about framing, it's about the elephant in the room, right? The front door of the building that over 500 people use is 13 and a half feet away. So I'm just asking for continued use of those community partnerships. Spring Lake Church, we are in the heart of this community because we love Green Bay. We are a community for the curious. We'd love to have 256 neighbors who come in and be part of our community. We love welcoming our St. John neighbors every Sunday, getting them coffee and snacks, being a place of refuge during the COVID pandemic for our St. John neighbors as well. Community Christmas in downtown, in that parking lot, where we provide free family fun, free entertainment, free services again. It's all about those community partnerships. So while Spring Lake, at least in my opinion, would love to have 256 neighbors, and I am in favor of development. I serve as a trustee in the Village of Hobart. We just announced $30 million in development. I understand the work that you have to go through and the processes. But just keep in mind community partnerships as we go through this discussion tonight. And for me, it's all about that. We'd love to welcome those neighbors, but we want those neighbors to park. The disabled who want to get into the front door, we want them to enter safely. So if our front door is 13 and a half feet away from an 8-story wall, how could the city and the developer assist Spring Lake Church in moving the front door to the side that faces Hotel Northland and work with us on signage, on parking, on accessibility, on safety, and ultimately those community partnerships that make Green Bay the great city that it is, and make Spring Lake Church the loving church that it is, the community of the curious church that we are. So I would ask for your consideration of those community partnerships tonight, and look forward to a solution where it can be a win-win situation for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Eugene Smalls.
How y'all doing? I'm Eugene Smalls. I'm with Gateway Collective, so I'm right next door. How you doing, Paul? Good. So, I mean, I echo the same thoughts, and I got a lot of colleagues here that's gonna say the same, but I just wanna know, how can the city ignore some of those rules, some of those things that need to be in place to allow this development to happen? I mean, that's our biggest concern, so how can these things be ignored? Again, I'm gonna close because my colleagues are here and they can talk. So.
Your record for your address for the record, please.
301 North Adams.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick Fisher.
Good evening, I'm Rick Fisher with Fisher Associates Architects, W13654 Balsam Lake Road in Curtis, Wisconsin. I'm the architect working on behalf of the Condominium Association, and so I've been working in the building and other projects as well. I have a good broad background of the use of the building and all the other history of the building. And as part of the evaluation of this, so this building, when originally constructed, was built as part of it, or the parking lot was built as part of the building planning, and there was a 30-foot easement at that point. So at that time, when the building was designed, it took advantage of that easement for exit paths and windows and all those other things. And so as this project, the adjacent project moves forward, it's going to change those conditions. We had applied for to restore the easement, and it doesn't appear that's going to happen. So, I started looking at how do I make this building in compliance if the easement's not available. And there's a few, a few things we need to look at. Several things actually. Had a great discussion with the city last week and their representative from E-Plan, the plan reviewer, and all good points and all other things, and kind of worked my way through many of those things, and I came down to just a short list of real concerns for compliance. One is that when the easement goes away, the sidewalk space out in front goes away. So if you think about how you exit, a large church or you have several groups of doors, and whatever your door widths are is what the sidewalk width needs to be. And so as you go from door to door to door along that side, I think there's 13 doors, the exit width has to get wider. So right now there's that really wide sidewalk which accommodates all the people, but that is going to disappear when the other building gets built. So that's one of my major concerns, and I have a little diagram. I'm sure the city has it, but I have several copies of it. And basically what we're doing is we've got the diagram kind of shows you the additive width of the sidewalk, and it turns out to be about 13 feet wide. So when we're, crouched down to 5 feet away, we really need 13 feet. So I think that's one of my major concerns. I think, there's ways to potentially solve that problem by moving doors and cutting off accesses and remodeling the building. One of the other persons said that, possibly moving the entrance to the church, all ways to reduce that required width. The other concerns are the utility of drainage, because right now all the water drains down. There's a drifted snow load component to this because the new building is going to put drift on the other building. And then, but that's the major concern. So if I could add an amendment to the conditional approval, would be to let's use the space.
Your time has been up, I was just letting you wrap up.
All right, yep, would be to use the space, whatever is left between our building and their building, as...
That's it, Rick, sit down,
Okay,
please.
thanks.
We have a large room, we can't have.
Nope, I'm done. Thank you.
Jeff Pittman?
Jeff Pittman, representative Spring Lake Church. I'm an executive pastor there, 301 Adams Street, right across from the development. Well, thank you guys for your public service. We pray for you guys often, and think the service is really not always the easiest, so thank you for your time here. We don't know city politics as much or legal stuff, so we have with a lawyer to help us out. We have a letter that he wrote that I'm going to read during my time here today, and I'll provide it to you guys afterwards as well through an email. So, dear Mrs. Hanson, kindly be advised that I am local counsel, have been retained to represent the interests of Spring Lake Church with respect to the site plan submitted of the planned unit development at 2201 Cherry Street, downtown Green Bay, Wisconsin. Spring Lake Church downtown, referred to as a church, has been a cornerstone of downtown Green Bay community revitalization since its establishment 6 years ago. Originally leasing and later purchasing part of the former mall and the current condominium complex, the church has invested millions of dollars into refurbishing the building and supporting a range of community activities. It is a significant part of the revitalization of the downtown and support continued revitalization of the community. Before making a decision to move downtown, church leadership was assured by the elected and appointed staff of Green Bay that while the parking lot would be one day developed, the city would attend to the parking needs of the membership of the church. Further, the staff and elected officials promised the church that it had a 30-foot buffer between its property line and the parking lot that would essentially protect the front entry of the building. Unfortunately, the city has not lived up to these assurances and once drew the church into the downtown space. In the past several weeks, there has been no real collaboration between the city staff, the redevelopment authority, and the church with respect to the proposed development. Rather, the discussion has been the city telling the church that the project, as opposed, will be approved with or without concerns of the church being met. Among other things, the proposed development eliminates all parking, closes entry of the church off into a 5-foot path off of Adams Street, and allows the development to build up to the property line, a line that the city promised the church would give them a 30-foot buffer, but has since reneged to a 5-foot path. This is concerning. While the church believes the development of this site is beneficial for the community, it cannot support a proposal that has such a negative impact on the church. The church simply requests the Planning Commission to defer the recommendation of this planned unit development until the needs of the church are heard and negotiated and met with mutually beneficial to both sides. I humbly ask on behalf of the church to delay the decision on the proposed PUD so that the needs of the church, the city, and the proposed development are met. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. This is from our attorney, Dan Dalton. I'll also add in that the timeline here has been pretty tight for us to try to navigate all these different pieces. I'm just happy to hear this and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. This is my list.
We just go back and forth.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Good evening. Bill Kennard, on behalf of Gateway Collective, second floor of 310 North Adams Street. First, thank you for allowing the opportunity to address the Commission regarding the concerns that pertain to the project. In the report to the Planning Commission, it states that under comprehensive plans, per code, the use of the PUD is a means to enable development of land in an integrated and innovative fashion to allow the flexibility in site design and to encourage the development that is sensitive to the environmental, cultural, and the economic considerations. While we fully support development in downtown Green Bay, this project allows full flexibility to the project while stifling the businesses and the property owners around it. A year ago, the RDA notified us about there was a 30-foot no-build easement around the Bay Lake City Center building, and now that has been vacated in favor of this project. Every other RFP that has required parking spaces for public to be replaced, and now that also is being waived. Last June, the Gateway Collective leadership was called into a meeting with Downtown Green Bay Incorporated and the RDA, where they stressed the need for natural light into the apartments being constructed on the second floor of the Bay Lake City Center building. And we met that concern by adding skylights to every affected apartment unit. Now, the RDA is looking to approve a project that will block most all natural light into the apartments along the south side of that building. There has not been transparency that this new structure, which is 8 stories tall, will have a 2-story wall, concrete wall, blocking all natural light. The report also indicates that the north wall of the proposed structure is located approximately 5 feet from the northern property line. Again, let's be clear, it's 5.2 feet from the building. The previous 30-foot no-build easement would have allowed the addition of outdoor gatherings and socialization space. Because consideration is being given to give all this space to the new project, it's taking it away from Bay Lake City Center. How do we reconcile that difference? Bay Lake City, the RDA has provided plenty of opposition last year to Gateway Collective and enforced every single ordinance, only to have them now, as the property owners, asking that all of these be removed and more be removed or waived for their benefit. And last, how does this impact the fair housing laws as it discriminates against workforce tenants in favor of higher earners? We're asking that you stop this incredible rush to push this through until all concerns have been dealt with. With that, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I would just ask.
Oh, okay.
Maybe ask her something that we can.
Or do I just ask whoever says?
I'll encourage that.
Right, okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward. Yes.
My name is Stephen Meyer. I live at 101 Cherry Street, 1 block away from this development, and I am president of the Riverfront Loft Homeowners Association. I wanted to speak tonight and enthusiastically endorse this development. The investment in downtown Green Bay is significant. What it does for the tax base, for population density, and for the economic impact on local restaurants and small businesses is phenomenal. Most people in this community know me as Deacon Steve from St. Elizabeth and Seton Parish, and I was instrumental in founding Streetlights Outreach, Whatsoever You Do Incorporated, and the St. John's Shelter. I have very vocally and financially supported the movement that has become Gateway Condominiums, or Gateway whatever it's called right now. But it's a good idea. It's a very, very good idea. But I also understand that diversity in our community takes many forms, one of which is economic diversity. And we absolutely need to build the economy of downtown with people of all economic profiles, including those who can support and patronize restaurants and shops and elevate property values for everybody. The impact of this development and what it can potentially do for the financial well-being and property values in the neighborhood is outstanding. So I wanted to enthusiastically encourage this group to support this and use its seat with the local government to really do what it can to grease the skids of development and not revert to a regulatory posture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Merkis, Executive Director of Downtown Green Bay Incorporated. For almost 30 years, the Downtown Green Bay organization has been positioning downtown with events and improvements and rolling out a welcome mat to developers, amenities to make our downtown attractive to residents of all demographic, of all income level. And there are a number of projects that have taken place in downtown Green Bay over the past 20 years that helped define, helped serve as a catalyst. And when the city deck was built in 2009, the city of Green Bay invested $12 million in its 70th park to take its rusty dock wall and convert it to a world-class waterfront. And as a result of that development, the city deck, a Green Bay park, we've experienced somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 to $200 million worth of development in our downtown. It has added vibrancy. It has resulted in, today we have 500 residential units on our Fox River, and all mostly, nearly 98+% occupied. Projects like the city deck motivated Schreiber to build a $100 million office building nearby. During Schreiber's construction, a development that brought 700 employees to our downtown, they looked elsewhere. They looked at Chicago O'Hare and they looked at the state of Utah, but 75 years ago, that company was formed in Green Bay. It's corporate leadership like that that I have witnessed in my years with downtown Green Bay. And during their construction, Associated Bank redeveloped a building and brought 500 people downtown. And the Hotel Northland, a $50 million development. We see what Newland Enterprises, they have 20 incredibly successful developments in downtown Milwaukee. They love downtown. They love Green Bay. Most people would think that you're going to find something like this 3 miles away at Lambeau, and this is where they want to be. And we encourage we support the PUD. We encourage the commissioners and the RDA to find a way for compatibility between the development and between nearby businesses. We hope we can find a successful way to make this happen, because the tax base and the density and the 350 to 400 plus people who are going to be living in our downtown will be patronizing nearby businesses. We encourage you to approve the PUD as it's presented. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, your address for the record?
130 East Walnut Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Who else is wishing to speak on this item?
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Patricia Jellin. I live at 1286 Northfield Road in Swamico. I am one of the founding and past president and founding board member of Downtown Green Bay Incorporated. We hired Jeffrey many years ago. And also a founding member of On Broadway, founding member and board member of On Broadway. I was also one of the original fundraising team members for the Meyer Theater to look at a feasibility study to see if it was worth revitalizing that building. So I have a long and storied history with downtown Green Bay, and I love this community. I love downtown Green Bay. One of the things that bothers me about this development, however, is the fact that it does negatively impact the neighbors. I'm a member of Green Bay Community, I'm an attendee of Spring Lake Church, and as a past president of the Village of Swamico trustee of Swamico and on their planning and zoning committee, I can tell you that this is not just not in my backyard situation. I'm not a NIMBY. But what I don't like about the project is the fact that it negatively impacts the neighbors. To have a 13 to 5 foot alleyway, walkway, concrete block out our front door that puts the church out of compliance, I think is not a wise thing for the church. This building does put the church out of compliance. It will cost the church money in order to get back into compliance, and I would really urge that your committee look at that and look at how it affects the neighboring properties. And I thank you for your time.
Chair, we have someone online who's wishing to speak.
Okay.
Joey, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
And state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello everyone, Joey Wisniewski with Newland Enterprises. That's 1840 North Farwell Avenue in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, representing the developer. We just wanted to make ourselves available for questions from the Plan Commission and thank everyone for the warm welcome to Green Bay, the staff, RDA, Plan Commission, our local aldermen. Everyone's been very helpful and supportive through this process, but we just wanted to make ourselves available if Plan Commission had any questions.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
My name is Roger Hanna. I live at 1700 over here. Sorry.
The mic is better.
Oh, the mic is better. My name is Roger Hanna. I live at 1700 Bentwood Drive. I'm from Spring Lake Church. What I have to say is short, sweet, to the point, with everything else that's been said here. When push comes to shove, there's one thing I'm interested in most happening for our church, that the developer and/or the city would take care of redoing the entrance for that entire building, especially Spring Lake Church. Move it over, make sure we have access for all the handicapped and access for those 500 people that come in and out. There's no way we can funnel in 500 people and handicapped in wheelchairs in a 13-foot space. And then when you open the door, you have even less. So help with changing the entrance. That's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me vent.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Ryan Milkey. I live in De Pere. I'm a member at Spring Lake Church. I also serve weekly as a youth leader at the Spring Lake Church downtown, and I work at our architecture firm in Alloway. I agree with others who have spoken that I am pro-development. I would like to see this building take place and get built. I'd like to raise my concerns. I graduated with my degree in architecture from Judson University in Chicago 2 years ago. And speaking from an architectural perspective, the current design setback on the Bay Lake building would not even pass in my college critique. And while I do appreciate the design of the building, the current location of the north facade creates an improper and an unsafe sense of entry to Spring Lake Church and other occupants. A tall vertical plane with close proximity to an existing building's entrance is almost universally prohibited in architectural design. If we are actually to create sustainable, inclusive, and beautiful architecture, which we all want in order to contribute to a walkable downtown, ignoring the concerns of the current users next door fails to meet these goals. Now, I won't claim to be more sophisticated in my design abilities than the project architects of record on this one, but I do know enough to recognize a building that is not a good neighbor to the people next door. Because of this, the current design would not pass in my college architectural critiques. And so I would like to see this project pass, both for the economic impact as well as the prospect to bring new residents to the heart of Green Bay. But I would ask the city and the architect to continue the design phase to accommodate the building to the former easement. Thank you.
And your address for the record, please.
Ryan Milkey, 725 Fulton Street in De Pere. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
For the record, my name is Hayden Davidson. I live at 2410 Memorial Drive. I have conflicting emotions about the development. I grew up in a town where, Eagle River, Wisconsin, where the city suffered because the city leadership did not encourage any development. However, the current design of the building, as everybody has said, feels very unneighborly, feels perhaps a little disrespectful to the other entities in the area who have invested time and money and resources into the community already. I also am concerned that it sets a precedent for other area businesses that if they are not as lucrative, that their space and their ability to operate will be infringed upon if a better, more lucrative opportunity appears. And I think that could set a dangerous precedent and concern amongst other area business owners. So.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brian Johnson, Alderman for this area.
I want to thank you for taking this up tonight, and obviously I've spoken to many folks in this room who have expressed some of their concerns to me, but one of the things that I want to maybe help provide some clarity around is what the purview of this body is tonight, and of course that is related to the planned unit development. And so there are, for most citizens, and we talk about this a lot at council, is most citizens don't always understand the complexity and nuance of the different processes and different commissions and committees and authorities that we have. And what's before you tonight, of course, are the provisions in the PUD. You have three things in front of you tonight. And I just want to make sure that we're not conflating, some of these other concerns with what's before you. And so what you have to debate tonight and decide upon, of course, is the residential on the first floor, reducing down to 256 square feet, and then that third provision that was recommended by staff. Those three items, as recommended by staff, I fully support, and I think that's where our focus and attention needs to be. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not up here saying this and sharing this to diminish the concern that other folks have. There's just a different process in city government to address those items, and that's really through the development agreement. And that is happening tomorrow at Redevelopment Authority, and then, of course, subsequently at City Council on May 21st, I believe is the date, right, Tuesday? So I encourage anybody here who has concerns that want to share about the overall agreement to do so during those processes, because those are the bodies that can actually influence and do that. This body does not have the jurisdiction or the ability to really address many of the other concerns that are being brought up here tonight. But I also do want to take this opportunity to just at least publicly say that I did speak with the mayor this evening. I spoke with some staff members, and I share the concern about the entrance, and I think that there's a way for the city to be an active participant on that. Obviously, the details need to be worked out, and I know some of the code issues that have been raised are things that will have to get worked out through that process as well. But I do think that there's an appropriate place for the city to be on that, and I think there's a partnership to be had to work through some of those issues and challenges. But the things that are before you this evening, which are truly under your jurisdiction, I think make a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, the development agreement is going to address probably more of the contentious issues. You have to take a look at this and say, does this make sense for this kind of development, or would we rather have something that's not as good, right? I think these provisions actually make this a better development, but the DA will address some of the other items, so thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I'm Rex Coldigelli, 136 Cabell Way, De Pere. I just wanted to say that I've lived in Green Bay my whole life, or Green Bay area my whole life, and I've really enjoyed what Green Bay has done to improve both the downtown and just in general of moving Green Bay forward and not being complacent. And I think that this project is a great project because that's a space that has been utilized throughout time for Art Street and other things like that, and to really bring up the value in the area. I would really hope that the committee would take concern, and they do have the authority and ability to hold this project and not continue moving it forward. So I want to also say that you guys do have that ability. The other gentleman said that you have no ability to do that. But I really would like you guys to take consideration of the things that both Spring Lake does downtown for the community, and then the ability for them to properly do that with this situation. With the amount of money that will need to be spent to move the building or move the entrance, that is money that we would typically be investing into our downtown area, like the homeless shelter and supporting events down there. So just, I would hope you guys would consider that piece, that there is a lot that is done to help the community down there, and if there is ability for the developer to make an adjustment so there's green space potentially in between the buildings, which would be beneficial for their residents in addition to the church, to create an area that gives that space, but it also is a multi-use space and would help out both sides. It potentially is a compromise where there's a benefit for the developer and a benefit for Spring Lake, where we wouldn't necessarily need to move that entrance. So hopefully you guys can take that piece into consideration, and we'll look at the big picture and not just these couple items. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
I'm Christian Jensen, 6370 Aspen Drive, Sobieski, and I'm with the Gateway Collective. I also have concerns about this project. I think what you're hopefully hearing tonight is there's a lot of support overall for downtown development, even those who are really against various aspects of this project. And so I hope that you all and others that aren't here and various other parts of the decision-making process understand that there's very few people that want to see nothing happen here, right? But hopefully that you are using your power to understand that these are folks that want to come to the table with solutions. Solutions have been submitted, ideas have been offered to people that, whether it's the developer or the city, over the course of years, really, around how that space can really be a good space that adds to the city. And so I would just encourage you all, as well as others in this, not in this room, to do that. The other thing I wanted to add is I'm coming from the Gateway Collective, which is primarily made up of staff members who've worked in homelessness for years. And one of the points that we talk a lot about is what are the conditions and the spaces that tend to attract people who are homeless. And if you have a two-story building that's 5 to 13 feet apart that is dark, may never have natural light based on where the sun would be and how tall those buildings would be, that is a perfect scenario to attract certain situations that we're ultimately trying to avoid. And so we're committed to creating being a great partner for downtown, and so I just ask you to consider that piece as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 2. Consideration with possible action on a request to create a planned unit development at 221 Cherry Street to allow the development of an 8-story building of 268 apartment homes and approximately 4,900 square feet of retail space on the street level, submitted by Joey Wisniewski of New Land Enterprises, applicant on behalf of the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority property owner.
Thank you, Chair. Addressing some of the comments that were made here regarding the property itself. As we take a look here at the block, you'll note the south part of the building wall is located mid-block. The reality of the situation is this building and the investments that put into it has been placed into either a side or rear wall of the building. So you can note over on to Washington and to Adams that your sides, they are right up against one another, as you have in downtown zoning. There's a 5-foot gap that's proposed on this, but it could be 0 feet. You could put this building directly on the property line, given its mixed-use nature. And given that it's a side and rear of a building. So with this in mind, the legitimate front of the building is along Adams, Northland, and Washington. Those are the fronts of this building overall. Now, there happens to be that gap in between, and the PUD did address that with the lighting portion, just to where keep a vague, not necessarily vague, but a broad discretion as to where to take this if there was the use here being agreed upon between both New Land and Bay Lake as to how that the pedestrian traffic would happen and flow through this area, if it would be active or not. But otherwise, when it comes down to this, the zoning and the comprehensive plan and authenticity calls for this use to be here in this way. I'm going to note from authenticity where one of the goals was the building form and character of downtown should be urban and avoid more suburban characteristics, such as large building setbacks and parking lots in front of buildings. It de facto became that way because of the parking lot. The parking lot itself, that surface lot, is a legal non-conforming use. If somebody came today and asked for a surface lot in downtown, it would not be allowed. It could come as part of accessory to a building, but would not be allowed as simply the overall use. Addressing that, I want to note there are 2 other aspects as far as PD, which are probably considered a bit more minor, but just a note in front of you. On the Washington Street side of the property, there's a driveway that leads out that exceeds the driveway width standard at the right-of-way by 1.3 feet. Typically has to be 25 feet wide. This is technical stuff, getting into, just want to note. The reason why they requested this is because they're looking to put up 2 individual driving stalls to get in and out of the facility, and it adds some more fenestration on the building, which we appreciate. The second thing is along Cherry Street, there are townhomes that happen to have some walls that are 100% opaque. With that in mind, we wanted to note that the wall should be no greater than 4 feet in height. That height was not noted, but we didn't want to create these 5-6 foot walls that people are looking over their patio. That's just a typical when it comes to our fencing, that we know that as well. With all that in mind, staff does recommend approval of the PUD.
Can we talk about the easement quick, because I know we took that up last year or something like that, and I thought we had that all together in terms of whatever discrepancy there was.
So, like was mentioned before, there originally was a 30-foot easement that was dissolved by both parties back in 2007. I think unfortunately, when the church did their build-out, they thought there was still a 30-foot easement. That might be one of the reasons why it was oriented the way it was, but that easement wasn't there when that happened with the church. So technically, right now, there's no easement on the property. You could build up to the property line. So there was a request by the condo group to put the 30-foot easement back in place. And that was actually approved by the RDA, but the RDA received some information that wasn't factual when they approved that. And since went back and said, time out, we don't need, it was sold to the RDA that the RDA needed the easement to develop their site, which was not true, they did not. So the RDA said, we're not going to execute this easement agreement. That being said, that's when staff started to meet with the condo association, end of 2023, saying, look, we know we can work with 5 feet. We know Newland is looking in the 5 foot. We don't have the plans yet, but look at 5 feet. Go back, tell us what that means for your building. We don't have access to your building. What does that mean? Are you going to have to move that doorway? Is it going to make fire issues different? Tell us, because we'd be willing to talk to you about these changes, right? The city doesn't have an obligation to participate in any funding, right, at this point, so it's taxpayer dollars we're talking about. But that being said, we know this might cause a problem, so work with us on this, give us this information. We got a list back from the condo group, which didn't give us any numbers and anything, and was a kind of a list of things, demands for the most part. We want all of this done, and the city's going to pay for it all. We didn't have plans at that time. We're like, okay, maybe things won't go forward at this point. So at that point, really wasn't a lot of communication between the two parties. I'm thinking they're working on this to figure out what might happen. And maybe they thought, we're going to wait to see if the plans come through. I can't speak for that. But so then when the plans came in, we're like, okay, now we know that those plans are coming in at 5 feet. So we've met with the condo group 2 more times, met with the church, brought our plan reviewer in. Please talk to us, tell us what this means. Our plan reviewer looked at that and said, I don't think it's going to be that bad. This building is sprinkled. I think the percentages for the windows might work. There may be some issues with the exiting coming out of that doorway, but if there's 13 feet, I mean, look at how many buildings there are downtown where you're less than 13 feet. So you hit a sidewalk when you come out of a building. So he didn't think that was going to be an issue. But more investigation needed to be done. Rick Fisher is working on that, I believe, to try to firm that up to see what that cost is, because we're still willing to look at those things moving forward. But they asked us to kind of delay this project, and this doesn't really, whatever happens with this project, we're going to redevelop this site. So we need to figure this stuff out on your side, regardless of what happens. It doesn't make sense to delay this project. So that's kind of where we are. I think today, I'm still waiting to see what those numbers are coming back, like what this might mean for real on the side of that building. So that's the easement situation. So there'd be like a 5-foot no-build easement between the 2 buildings. And that's what would be, if it wasn't activated at all, if the 2 parties don't want to come together and say, let's activate this space, it just becomes a lot line. And then Newland would need to do something with their 5 feet, the no-build section, which I think they're planning on brassing out the landscaping and lighting to make it look nice. And then the condo association would do what they wanted on theirs.
There's no utilities present, or at least issues with utilities. I don't know if they were there at some point, but that was part of the easement.
I guess I'm not sure. That comes with plan review and tech. Stormwater management's going to be part of the deal. They're going to have to look at that. They're going to have to look at where the utilities are. I think they've worked on that already. So I guess those to me are just building code types of things that Newland will have to deal with. Make sure that they meet the code when they build.
Question for staff. If they didn't have townhomes on Cherry Street, would they be coming before us?
It's those three things, the two things.
It's two things. I think the other two could be hashed out, but we felt it was appropriate to have the other, the driveway width and the wall height. Yes, it's really just two, because the lighting's just an addition that we put on for this.
And that in the 1,000 square feet? The second.
That was item 2.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so with that, for anything that's development for multifamily within the city, there's a need to have a minimum amount of square footage on a lot. That's meant to have enough amenities, parking, green space, amenities for the tenants themselves. And staff feels that they've met that above and beyond. So it's an arbitrary number, it's 1,000 square feet, it's round. And it is the lowest that we have in the city at 1,000. But if you met the intent, we feel it's appropriate to move forward.
Can you put up those three conditions, please?
These are the three main points of this. So there's a fourth one, but what is happening here, what's deviation from downtown to is just the first two. It's land use development. Residential is not better than the first floor of a mixed-use building. If this happened to be nothing but residential, could be allowed. It's fine, but it's not. It's mixed use, which is what the comprehensive plan and authenticity have called for time and time again. And then the square footage, which means property itself is about 68,000 or so square feet ballpark, meaning 68 units would be your max if you're taking that into account. But generally speaking, with past development, that would also be surface parking or other amenities or setbacks. That's not the case here, where they've met what they need to do and beyond the amenities and the parking.
So, and this wouldn't even be before us if it weren't for items 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I'll just note, the residential, as far as, you're allowed to have residential first floor as long as you're not facing the street. So if there was more either side or rear, that'd be allowed. But it's when it's facing the street, and it happens that because of the way this lot is, it's set out, a large chunk of it is having surface area along those three streets.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further questions for staff or further discussion?
Just a reminder that what Alder Johnson said is very accurate in terms of our reach in this regard, so certainly connect with him if there's any questions or concerns, but I think we're sticking to what is within our purview here.
Okay, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. There was a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And then that will move forward into City Council for May 21st. Moving on to informational director's report. Director's report and
We knew this would be a long one.
They're just That's your report. Date of the next meeting is June 3rd, 2024. Motion by Commissioner Rubinski, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Bill.